Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is watching. I want to start sincere apologies. We had some untimely technical difficulties right as we went live, but thank you if you are still with us for being patient. Here we go. We are here. Let's take a break. Welcome to the Global Nomads Group and Students Rebuild live webcast conversation on immigration. Today's conversation is a part of a larger series called the Facing Difference Challenge, where we've been talking to young people all school year around the world about how they step up and face difference as it relates to race, religion, and today, immigration. We are excited to have 3 new groups of students here with us, and they've been patient, and we've talked, and I've heard some of their stories, and I'm excited to share their stories with you today. We'll start by introducing myself, Afia. My name is Afia, and I'm here in New York City in the Global Nomads Group office. And I'm going to have our students introduce themselves. We have students joining from Amman, Jordan, from McAllen, Texas, and from Tbilisi, Georgia. Teams, if you want to introduce yourselves, and then we will get started.
Hi, I am Yara. We are in Amman, Jordan, and this is my group. On the right, you have Duha, and on my left, there's Zaina, Oman, Yusuf, and Muhammad. One of the things that people have about Jordan that we ride camels to school and that we don't have, and greens, and we live in desert. But no, we do have cars, and we have technology, and I hope that we can share stories and get benefits from each other. Thank you.
Hello, we're a group of juniors that go to Idea Quest. We live in McAllen, Texas, which is a city south, and we're bordered with Mexico. And one of, I guess, the stereotypes that they have of McAllen is that it's filled with, dangerous people, that it's a dangerous place to live in because we're bordered with Mexico, and Mexico is commonly taken as a dangerous place. However, we have people from around the world. So my name is Jimena. This is Pamela. This is Cassidy, Bert, and then we have Wenhan over here. Most of us are Mexican Americans, except for Wenhan. He's from China, and Cassidy's part Puerto Rican. And thank you.
Hi, I am Maria. Here are we in Georgia right now, and here is Georgian children and Armenian children from Armenia. And funny fact about Georgia is Americans think Georgia is the state of America, and it's not true, it's false. And Georgia is the country. Looks like country of USA. Thank you.
Thank you all. Actually, I'm a native American Georgian, so I was excited to get to work with students who are from the country of Georgia. To our audience, to the people who are listening, watching in classrooms or at home, please feel free to join us. We have an active chat room happening now where you can engage in conversation with each other and where you can pose questions or comments in response to what you see happening live. I do my best to include questions and comments from our live audience, but we are running a little late now, so I want to squeeze in as much of their stories as possible for you. But please, please, please share with us some of your thoughts and your questions, because we would love to share them with our students who are live, okay? So today we're going to start our conversation, as we always do, by creating an understanding or defining the topic. And so today, again, we're talking about immigration, and I'd like to welcome our students at each of the sites to tell us what immigration, how they define immigration, or what immigration means to them, and immigration and integration, as that is part of our conversation as well.
Well, immigration is a word that could be defined by changing the geographical position of a person or a group by either or two reasons. The first reason is that basically people have desire to change position, change place, or basically they are forced and obliged to do so by war or something else. Thank you.
Immigration can also be moving from one place to another for the better, either for, depending on your situation mostly, and it can also be to discover and have an open mind to a different community and a different society. Thank you.
Immigration is moving one place on another place. For example, by the reason social, political, or for marriage, or for problems in your home, something like that. Problems.
Yeah, thank you. To synthesize, immigration and integration is this process of people moving from one place to the other, either as affected by social political issues, for desire for a better life or for more opportunity. Unfortunately, sometimes it might mean displacement due to fleeing from danger. So we understand, and our students understand in each of their locations, that there are various reasons that allow families or make families have to make the decision to immigrate and integrate into new spaces, right? And so I want to start the chat room conversation up to open and let us know, what role has immigration played in your local community? Are you in a community that has a lot of immigrants, or are you just now learning about what immigration means in your local community? Okay. So to our live students, let's just get right into some of your stories. I think we can start in Jordan and then move to Texas, and then we'll end in Georgia. But we would like to know what life is like in your shoes. We know that there are various ethnicities and nationalities that exist in one place. And so if you will say again who you are and where you're from and where you live now, as you tell us a little bit about your story. Thank you.
Actually, when we talk about Jordan and about the immigration, we can say that Jordan is a country with a big and a huge number of immigrants, Syrian, Palestinian, and so many Arabian nationalities that came here in order to find work or for a desire, as Muhammad mentioned before, and for so many reasons. So yeah, Jordan contains a lot of, or a huge number of immigrants for a various number of reasons. Thank you.
I would like to share my story. I was born in Jordan, and after I was born, we directly moved to Saudi Arabia. We lived 9 years in Saudi Arabia. We cut ties with everyone I knew. After Saudi Arabia, we went to Qatar, where we started reforming our family bond, and then we returned to Jordan. This is where I am currently. We've been in here for 3 years. Thank you.
Yusuf, what was that like for you, moving away immediately and then coming back? Like, was there an adjustment period for you and your family?
No, not really. After I was born, we directly moved, so I don't really remember anything about Jordan from when I was born. I lived my first 9 years in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Doha. I would like also to share my story. My story starts when I thought that home means the place where I was born or live. But one day, we lost our freedom. This caused to lose our safe, and then to lose some relatives and some people who I love. This forced us to immigrate from Syria to Jordan. At first, it was difficult to be familiar with the atmosphere here. Then I changed my point of view. Now I think that home means my family, my friends, and people who I love. Home means the place where I can find the freedom, the place which give me the express to the right to express my opinions, my thoughts, and my beliefs. It's also the place where I can feel peaceful and safe. It's also the place where provides for me all of the things that I need, such as education and healthcare. And that's it. Thank you.
McAllen, I know you have some great stories to tell us as well about home and immigration and moving back and forth.
Hello. So me and Pamela share some of the stories. We both cross the border from Mexico to the United States every day to come to school, and we face a lot of struggles along the way. You know, sometimes we can make it to school on time, sometimes we can't. It really depends. Sometimes we face struggles like with the border patrol, like the officers that receive our documents. But other than that, it's mainly we have to have an open mind that we come here for our education and that we need to fight for it because we're citizens, and despite the situation we were born in, we deserve to be here as well. And Pamela's gonna explain why.
Okay. In my case, it's difficult because I have two brothers, and my dad can cross to United States. So we need to choose whether leave my dad in Mexico and living in the United States without him, or crossing every day to school. So we need to do that sacrifice just to have a better education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me personally, I was born in the U.S. and I lived here my entire life. On my dad's side of the family, I do have those immigrant connections to Mexico, but on my mom's side of the family, my family are like, I guess, more Americans. They don't really have immigrant connections. So on my side of the family, there's actually a lot of like anti-immigration feelings and stuff like that. So it's just kind of difficult for me knowing that were it not for my grandparents immigrating here, if it were not for my dad's parents immigrating here, I wouldn't exist at all. Meanwhile, my mom's parents feel like immigrants shouldn't be allowed in. So it's just kind of weird to have that clash in my life between the two different sides of my family and their feelings regarding immigration.
So for me, I'm an American citizen. My mom, unfortunately, when she came to the United States, she came as an undocumented immigrant. Shortly after meeting my father, it was very hard for her to get her citizenship. So throughout time, she finally got her citizenship like 19 years later after having been here at the United States. So it's pretty difficult, like traveling, because you never know if the proper documentation will go through. Going back to Mexico, not knowing if we can bring back our mother to go visit family. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Winhan. I'm Chinese, and I moved to America when I was around 11. And I'm still not a citizen, like, nor do I have a green card. I'm here on a visa. So because of that, I move around a lot. And home to me is really just where my parents are. Like, it's where I'm most comfortable. Because because my culture is so different from I feel from the rest of the United States, or like even where I live right now, where it's a majority Hispanic. It never like fits in with the community as well as like some other, I feel like, cultures can be. Thank you.
Mevarsam Gulavar Tris, Psholov Kardabanshi, Kardabanshi, Chemi Eris Sakatvelos Aris, Azerbaijan, Holot, Adkin Sadat Tawi Badi Sadat Tawi გავიზარდე ჩემი სახლი საქართველოზე, სადაც ცხოვრობ გარდაბანში, ჩემი ოჯახიც ცხოვრობს იქ. ყავს დედა, მამა და ძმა. ჩემი სახლი მაქვს და ჩემი სახლია. ეს ასევე ის ადგილი, სადაც ჩემს მეგობრებთან ერთად ვარ. გარდაბანში ბევრი სხვადასხვა ადამიანები ცხოვრობს. ჩვენ ერთმანეთის
My name is Samangula. She says she's 13 years old. She was born in Kardaban, Georgia, and she lives there now, but she's ethnically from other country, Azerbaijan, a neighboring country of Georgia. Now her home, she says that her home is in Georgia, where her family and friends are. This is what home means to her.
For example, I'm in Georgia for 2 days, and this is my home for this time. It is my home, and I will protect and will understand their laws and respect their ideas. And I think that home has two meanings. First is that our family and our nations, and second is that where we are now live and where we are now.
Thank you all for sharing. I want to invite the people in the chat room as well to share what home means to you, and what does this home mean, that you can take it anywhere, or is home for you a specific location that you are emotionally tied to. We have an array of diversity here of students who are from multiple different places and have found home in one geographic location despite maybe being from somewhere else. And so now we're going to shift our conversation to talk a little more about why it may be difficult for people to understand immigration or find value in immigration, whether again you are the person having to move or the person who is in the geographic area where immigrants are coming. And a lot of the themes that just came up for so far from your stories are family and sacrifice and loss. And so I just want to open the floor for you all to share some about that as well, but about some of the struggles that you've either witnessed or experienced with people struggling with the idea of immigration or integration.
Hi, it's Sarah again. I'm not an immigrant, neither do my parents, but my grandparents are. As a Jordanian with a Palestinian background, when I see immigrants come here to Jordan, as the whole people, we are very welcoming to immigrants. We don't tend to have to differentiate between each other. But for the sacrifices that my grandparents did, they came here in order to find peace. But when I talk to them and they tell me their stories, they told me that now they kind of regret moving out of the country, and they would do anything in order just to go back there, even for a week, even for a little short time. Thank you. Nobody would like to add? No?
Okay, so in the community where we live in is based mostly of Mexican Americans and sometimes Mexican immigrants. So for us as a community, we kind of feel welcome. However, that's not always the case, because since we cross every morning, sometimes officials aren't in a good mood, and they can sometimes decide how the day flows based on how they communicate to us or what they want us to say. And sometimes, for example, we can give our documents and they can just say oh, what do you want here? I understand that you're going to school, but why don't you go to Mexico? And they can't understand and they don't really relate to it. And it's just it's a complicated decision to make then. Sometimes we feel like we don't have a voice because our parents are Mexican and they're worried that their documents are going to be torn apart and like they're not going to be able to take us to school anymore, and we always have that worry in the back of our mind. However, we have to like, you know, look straight ahead and like not focus on that. But it does feel unfair for us as citizens. Like we should have the right to have a say. We shouldn't be treated as if we're coming into, I don't know, like as if we were, I guess, aliens, because we're not. And it's just complicated. We've sometimes, you know, our school has taken us on field trips up north and they see us very differently and they don't understand like, oh, where's McAllen? Where's the valley? Where are you from? And they ask questions like, is it dangerous? And we're just like, well, yeah, sometimes. And they mostly think it's dangerous because they have this idea that because we're mostly Mexican, we have the Mexican culture, and partly we do. However, we don't have like dangerous aspects such as like in Mexico, the drug organizations, because there's a drug, I guess, what do you say, like
Trafficking.
There's drug trafficking through the Mexican border to the United States. And they often relate that the violence in Mexico would transfer to the United States. And that's not the case at all. Sure.
Yeah. A lot of times when we do go to these other places outside, there's sort of a feeling of like not belonging and things like that. Like I remember one time we were on like a school field trip at a university, and the majority of the people at the university were white Americans. And so our tour guide said something along the lines of, oh, well, there's not a lot of people like you guys here, so maybe this university isn't the best place for you. Like, just because we do have that different cultural background, like we can't be around people who aren't like us. Like, we shouldn't be around them. So there's definitely, we get weird looks and stuff too, other comments like that. It's just a lot of like, they see us as outsiders. They don't see us as Americans or even Mexican Americans. They just see us as Mexicans and things like that. So it's really kind of difficult to feel like we belong in places that are outside of this area of the country. Thank you.
So, I want to add on to that. I think because this perception of immigration is harmful to society, to economy. It's like just basically kind of false in a sense, because I feel like this is applicable to like everywhere almost. That immigrants are not dangerous and they're not just social drags. They're there to contribute to economy. They're there to contribute to the social factor. And they're like, just take the case of like McAllen, so where we live right now. McAllen is like one of the fastest growing regions in the United States, and we're a completely culturally, cultural stigma from the United States, the rest of the United States. And that just goes to show how wrong this perception of immigrants are a stigma to society.
We're also one of the safest metropolitan areas in Texas. That also kind of dismisses the idea that because we're right next to Mexico and because there is that relative closeness to the drug trafficking and stuff like that, like we're not dangerous like they think we are. Like we're a really safe area. We're a great place, but they're not open-minded enough to realize that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm thinking about you ladies in Georgia as well. And I know from our earlier conversation, we talked about what it looks like there for so many diverse communities to come together. Can you share a little more about that and some of the sentiments that you've heard about people maybe against immigration, but also the positive stories as well?
მე ვარ დევნილი ცხინვალიდან, ცხოვრობ გარდაბანში, საქართველოში. თავიდან როდესაც გამოვიდნენ გარდაბანში, პრობლემები ექნებოდათ ქართველებს და აზერბაიჯანელებს. კამათები მოდიოდათ, შემდეგ ბავშვებსაც მოდიოდათ კამათები მშობლებსაც და ერთმანეთს ვერ უახლოვდებოდნენ. შემდეგ დროდადრო ერთმანეთს დაუახლოვდნენ, დამეგობრდნენ და ახლა კამათები აღარ მოხდით, არანაირი ჭკუები. და ახლა ვიტყვი, რომ გარდაბანში არიან ინდოელები, რუსები, აზერბაიჯანელები და ქართველები, ანუ სხვადასხვა ეროვნების წარმომადგენელი ხალხი არიან და ხანდახან ქართველები ან აზერბაიჯანელები შეურაცხყოფას ატარებენ ხოლმე მათ და გონიათ ქართველებს და აზერბაიჯანელებს, რომ საქართველო მარტო მათია, მაგრამ ეს არის ცუდი ემიგრაცია და
Mariam says that she's an internally displaced person, IDP, from one of the regions of Georgia, from Thin Valley. She moved to Gardaban, Georgia, when she was very little. And when her family moved here, there were a lot of cases of small conflicts between Georgians and Azeri people in Gardabani. But time after time, it got better. Right now, Gardabani is a very diverse place where a lot of different people live, such as Indians, Russians, Chinese. Mariam says that there are cases when Georgians and Azeris are harassing them because they think that Georgia belongs only to them. But she thinks it's not right because immigration is not a bad thing. It's very important for the country. Thank you.
Thank you. This problem is in our area too. For example, in Armenia now we have 12,000 refugees from Syria, and they speak. They have another nationality. They have another language, and we will find some ways, right ways to communicate with them for our happiness and for our peace. Thank you.
Ցավոք իմ ներկայացում այս վիճակի որ հիմա ավելի շատ ներկայացում զարգացում են քան ներկայացում
She said that it's unfortunately for Armenians now we have a lot of people who leave our country by the economical reasons, social economical reasons. They try to find jobs just outside in Russia and other countries, not in Russia but in other countries of the world, which is very sad.
Հաջող դուրսում մեր հայերի համար բավարար պայմաններ չեն ստեղծվում աշխատանքի համար ու նրանք ստիպված թողնում են այդ աշխատանքը ու վերադառնում Հայաստան ու իրենց պարզապես երազում են որ Հայաստանում լինեն միշտ այդպիսի պայմաններ որ ոչ մի հայ երբեք ստիպված չլքի երկիրը ու իր հայրենիքը
It was not very good life condition for these people, labor migrants from Armenia, and we knew that there were some cases of tension between the host community, people who are from other countries, particularly from our region, from other regions. So, but my dream, she said that all people from Armenia return back and were welcome for others, and I think it will be the best option for all of us if we can move and return back and move again, so it will be very good for everyone.
And I think that we have one win, and for example that, and I think it's because Armenia did the first peace resolution without political bottom last week in history, and I think that is a very big win for us. And I think with this we can call back our Armenians.
Thank you all for sharing. Very diverse and a lot of stories, and we know that it's not always easy when there are newcomers or people who want to protect where they are now. And we know that some of these messages we also get from outside, like the media. And so we've talked about this a little bit, and I know that the students in both Texas and in Jordan have very clear opinions about the role of media in painting the picture of immigration. Can you share some of that with our audience, please, today?
First of all, I would like to say that I'm really sorry that we all have to go through these experiences about immigrants. I'm really sorry. I hope that one day we can live in peace and we can share that. And we won't have these difficulties in order to find good education and in order to find peace. I hope that we'll never have to go through this. And I hope we'll find some solutions in the future. Thank you. And now,
immigration. Immigration is a big subject. News talk about immigration as it's a bad thing because they see people coming in from different places, people that need healthcare, people that are going to start increasing the need for a budget on healthcare, on education. But the immigration is not bad. Most immigrants are good people who are looking for a better life, or simply have been forced outside of their own countries. And to get this unbiased news is incredibly hard to find. Most news stations will cover up the truth by some hidden facts or some extra stuff that they might put in because someone might have paid them to say this, as it makes this person look better. Thank you.
People remember things that are actually negative instead of the positive things. So a shocking fact that is actually bad will stay in memory for longer time than something that is actually good and peaceful. So basically the media, all they're focusing on is basically the money. So they need these finances using the bad things that come from immigrants. And as Yusuf said, it's a big subject. So it's just a very good advantage for media to use it as a bad thing. Thank you.
And you know that our lives and our communities, our culture are composed of overlapping stories. However, the TV channels and the media paints a single story of those stories, and everyone looks to the point from one side, just one side. They didn't look to all the sides to know the real thing, the real story. For example, I said before that I'm from Syria. Before I came to Jordan, I heard from the social media that Jordan is not a good place, and people in Jordan don't like immigrants, and they don't respect them, and all of these things. Then when I came to Jordan, I was surprised that none of this is true. So I think that everything about single story.
And unfortunately, you can find that the big channels and sites use their big name in order to to get something in a very wrong way, and so on. So you can find a big, let's say, channel in the TV. It uses its big name to have subscribers, maybe on YouTube, to have more viewers, more likes, comments on the social media, and actually, at the end, it's all about money. It's trafficking. Thank you.
For me, finding trustworthy channels and trustworthy people that I can take my news from is really, really hard, because the truth is often overlooked. So we have to search really hard in order to see the full story. And it often does not happen. Thank you.
So in the U.S., there is a lot of different biased media sources. Like, some are more pro-immigration and they say, let's help them out. But then there's also like the more negative response to the media. Like, there's a lot of pushback against immigration that just run the negative stories about. They say things. They point out the negative stories, like in the instances where immigrants do commit crimes, or they talk about jobs and stuff like that, and they blame it on immigrants. And they basically just sort of promote this idea that immigrants are bad in order to appeal to their anti-immigration base. Like, there's this big debate about the border wall and everything that our president wants to create in order to stop illegal immigration from Mexico. But here we know, in our community, we know that the border wall would have a lot of really negative effects for our wildlife, for our local economy, for our ability to go back and forth between our families and things like that, especially for people like Jimena and Pamela. We know here that would be a really negative, that it would have a lot of negative effects. But people in the media sometimes promote it. They talk about how dangerous places like McAllen are, and they just promote sort of lies and really biased things, or they misuse facts in order to try to promote these anti-immigration feelings. And the media pushback on the other side is kind of, it exists, but it's not as strong and as passionate as the anti-immigration feelings are. So it's really just sort of difficult to find media sources that are unbiased or that promote immigration in the way it should be promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's also poignant. For your points are so spot on in terms of not knowing where all of the information is coming from and what to trust, especially for people who are in areas that are not affected by issues like immigration or integration. It can be difficult to make sense of what's happening in the world or in each of our countries when you don't have direct interaction. And so thinking about those people and just painting a positive outlook for the future, can you tell us about some of the things that you do either to face difference or to counteract some of the negativity that comes up with the topic? And or you could share any advice that you might have for other people who seem to be struggling with the idea of immigration. I know we talked before about like the benefits to it as well. So you can say some of those again if you like.
Do you want to go? Okay. You go. Oh my God, someone go. Bert, go.
Okay. We can look to this case actually came from another place or from another side. As say, we can't look at it as a single story or a story from one side just. I can see as the one who has left his country as a person who's looking for hope, who's looking for peace and a better place to live in. So actually, you can't look to this case just from the negative side. It has a lot of positive sides you can see from it, as it is people who are searching for hope, who are searching for peace and so on. They're not people who are searching for damaging the other countries and so on. They all look to the immigrants as they want to damage the countries that they go to and so on. But actually no, they left their countries by force and under force. And actually, absolutely, everyone who has left his country under force, he would like to return to his home. And thank you.
I would like to point out a way to get unbiased news about immigrants. One of the best ways is to ask actual immigrants how it is to move from one place to another. And one of the other best ways is to check local news, not global news. To check local news of that area, of how the immigrants are doing, how are they helping. Thank you.
Also, another thing is that some people may perceive, like as we said over and over, the negativities of immigrants. But basically, like for example, any negativity that is actually mentioned is meant to be positive. Like for example, like our friends in Texas said that they might be stealing jobs or something. While in fact, this is like enriching the community and the economy. This is like growing the commerce of the country itself, because there are more and wider knowledge, more variety of like possibilities to income. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
كتب الآليان صالحايز الممثلين المخاخين إندولا بيوغو سبي Azerbaijan emekler Trump etmentis tradicji bigawigot etmentis kultura შევის not სამკაულები ჩაცმულობის ტრადიცია ჩაცმულობის პირი კერძები და ამ შემდეგ ვცდილობთ ერთმანეთს გავაგებინოთ და ძალიან გვაინტერესებს და ვცდილობთ ერთმანეთის კულტურას პატივისცემთ ერთმანეთის რელიგიას.
The way how we are trying to appreciate differences between different people in Gardaban is that we try to, we are curious about each other's traditions. We celebrate some events together. We try to learn more about their customs, their food, their fashion style or clothes, and etc. These minor things makes us to appreciate the difference between each other. Thank you.
Now we are
Go ahead, Mikhail.
Another way that we can also integrate our communities or that we welcome new people and new immigrants is to make festivals, to share your story, to actually want to learn and don't be afraid nor biased, and just, be open-minded to what everybody has to offer, because everybody in this world has something special to say and something special to represent. It doesn't matter where you're from, we're all the same. And I think we should embrace that we're all different, and just celebrate it. We should just welcome everything. And despite possibly hearing negative comments on the media, we need to be strong and ignore those comments, because they don't shape who we are, and they aren't gonna, form our future, and they're not gonna affect us in any way. We need to shape who we want to be. We need to be in charge of that, because we are the boss of our own life. And thank you.
Thank you. Manhattan, did you want to say something? You can add if you'd like. No? Okay. I have a few questions from our audience to follow up on some of the wonderful things that you said. So the first question is for the group in Jordan, and it is about how immigration is treated there by the country. Our audience wants to know, are any of the rights of immigrants limited in Jordan? Or do immigrants have to face more difficult times or standards than Jordanians? Thank you.
Actually, yeah, when you go to the government and its problems and so on, issues, you can say, yeah, the immigrants have some rights and they have something to do and something it's not allowed to do. For example, the Syrian people, they're like a camp. It's named by Zaatari camp. They have cards and so on in order to go, and they have time, a limited time, and they have some cards to go to the market and buy and so on, and they can't go outside the camp and work on unless there's a person from the country with a Jordanian nationality came and give such thing like guarantee, let's say, to bring him and work outside the camp and so on, and so many other issues that immigrants face, actually. Thank you. That's as for the people inside the camp, but as for the immigrants outside the camp, Jordanian people tend to be really friendly and really respectful, and they treat them like family, Everybody here in Jordan, we treat each other like family, like we are one person, like one big family that supports each other, that lift each other up rather than put each other down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have another question, and anyone can answer. This question is about how people who live in their native lands or in their own countries, how can we respect immigration and immigrants while also recognizing or acknowledging some of the issues that might come from illegal immigration or from people who may be undocumented? Is there any opinion or thought about how to create long-term solutions? Because as we've mentioned, sometimes it's by force, and maybe you had no choice or time to get your papers together and you had to move before you could sort out your details. But what are your opinions on looking to the future, that we celebrate immigration and immigrants and also are able to recognize that some people don't have that privilege even as well?
Well, for one thing, people could actually be respectful to immigrants in a way that states don't treat them differently. I mean, don't say, oh, he's an immigrant, how can I make him feel he's home or something like that. No, it's just a person, okay? So treat him as if you're treating every single person around you. Okay, so don't act that he's a special case or something. No, it's just something very simple. Just deal with him as you deal with anyone else. And for illegal immigrants, I don't think even illegal immigrants could be like bad people. I mean, most of them they're trying to save their lives, and people who are trying to save their lives, they shouldn't be considered bad. We don't know about people's intentions, but we could observe their actions towards us. So if they weren't harming us and Most people actually just hear that from the news, but they never got treated disrespectfully from immigrants. So the solution is simple, just treat them like people. They're not different. Thank you.
I 100% agree with Muhammad. And I think that I just tend not to point out that there are immigrants, or refugees. Just act to them and, share your stories together and then just be just as a human. We all are humans, we all have stories, different stories, and just that's how life is.
And yeah, I think the first step to do that is to look positively for this issue or for this case. Actually, you can't look at them as tourists, people who went to damage your country or so on. No, they're people who are searching for a better life, and that's it.
I would like to reply with a quote that my grandfather used to tell me every day. He used to tell me to embrace immigrants. He used to tell me they are the people who are coming in the country to help us and develop, to help us become a higher status country. So through my years, I've looked at people and I've embraced people who are coming from different lands. I've welcomed them. I've had a lot of immigrants, friends of mine who were immigrants. I've even had family of mine who were immigrants, and we would always welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that language is a big part of this as well, at least speaking from the American context, that the word illegal gets used to demonize what people are doing, even if it's a positive or something to save their own lives. And so even how we assume that a person is legal or illegal can sometimes determine if we treat them fairly or unfairly, despite the fact that they are a human being. So I think that what you're saying is very spot on, that it is how we see these people and their circumstance, and that changes how we interact with them. And returning to our ideas of home, and we've had some people share from online saying that home is where their heart is and where their family is. When we all think about our idea of home, we want to find it wherever we find ourselves having to be, whether it is from safety or by desire. And I think if we all remembered, everyone just wants a little feeling of home, despite where they've originally come from, and that I would want my own sense of home, that we might interact with each other in a more peaceful way. I agree. Thank you all for your comments. And so our time is going really fast. And so I want to give each site an opportunity to share a little more. And I heard from Jordan that there's a lot of misconception that the area is not very welcoming. And so I'm interested to know what else would you like the world to know about Jordan and Georgia and Texas that you feel like they don't know based on misconceptions about immigration? What would you want the world to know?
You're gonna go Jordan.
No. Go. Okay, well, I feel like one thing that has been consistent throughout American history is just sort of this hatred of immigrants. Every time there's a new wave of immigrants, whether they're European, like Italians, or whether they're from Asia, like Chinese immigrants, and now we see Latin American immigrants, they tend to get blamed for things. They get blamed for economic problems, for crime, and things like that. So this isn't a new thing that's come out recently in the United States. This is something that we've always had. What we've always seen is that over time, these immigrants become more accepted and they become more... They've contributed to the current culture that the United States has. Because what a lot of Americans feel like is that in order for immigrants to be accepted, they have to assimilate to American culture. What they don't realize is that American culture has been created entirely by immigrants. So they don't realize the contributions that we've had, that immigrants and our communities have had to the economy and to our society and culture. So I just feel like if they're more open-minded to how, I guess, amazing immigrants are and our communities that we've created, they would just sort of realize that the United States we will have in about 50 years will be an entirely better United States that we have right now. And that'll be entirely because the wave of immigrants that are coming in right now. So I just feel like it's just a problem that the US has consistently dealt with, but that immigrants have constantly fought back against and managed to survive through and create a better America for everyone. A better world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Doha again. I heard about Jordan that before I came to Jordan, I heard that people here don't respect any immigrants. They hate immigrants because they increase the population here. And I heard that it is a poor country like that, have a lot of economic problems. Then when I came to here, I found that all of this is wrong, and I found that people here are familiar with immigrants. Yes, immigrants increase the population, but they also increase the workforce to the country. And thank you.
And actually, when you came and asked someone who's a refugee or his immigrants, ask him, what do you think about Jordan? He says to you, I consider Jordan like my second country. And when you hear that, you think about this person, he loves Jordan. And so he won't destroy it or say anything bad about it. So he's in Jordan just like to have time to get back to his country. Thank you.
Then we all tend to be on the same page when it comes that home is a feeling rather than a place. So we are all immigrants in our own ways. We are all refugees in our own ways. So here in Jordan, most people kind of welcome refugees and welcome immigrants, and we don't show them that you are different than us. We try to be just one person, one family that helps each other and lifts each other up. Thank you.
Georgia, what would you like the world to know about your home and about your embracing of it?
საქართველოს გამორჩეული თუმად მოყარეობით, ფლილი ადამიანებით და უგემრიელესი კერძები. ასევე საქართველოს არის დამოუკიდებელი ქვეყანა, ჩვენ პატივს სხვადასხვა რელიგიას, რას we want others to know that Georgia is always welcoming for new people, and it has always been a hospitable country which respects many cultures and religions and races. That's what we want you to know.
საქართველოს გამორჩევა ტოლერანტული ხალხი, ყოველთვის და მიიღოს განსხვავებული კულტურის ეროვნების ხალხი. და მინდა ვთქვა, რომ თბილისში, ანუ ერთ უბანში არის ისეთი ადგილი, სადაც არის 5 განსხვავებული სინაგოგა, ეკლესია და ამით მტკიცდება, რომ საქართველოს ტოლერანტული.
Historically, we've always been trying to be very tolerant because in Tbilisi we have a street where there are 5 different religious places, church, synagogue. So it's 5 different cultures and religions there. So that proves that we really want to welcome all different people.
So I think that with this culture is for me the best and the great idea. I think it can open the big doors for our future. Why not? You can imagine your future more open and interesting. You can see your future more interesting.
I'm from Sisian and then I'm from Goris. Sisian and Goris near border cities in Armenia. We have many problems to communicate with immigrants, but Armenians are open hearts people, and
we were happy that the tourists have interested in our culture and welcome to Armenia. We will wait for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as we wrap up the conversation, I'm going to allow for just like a final statement from you all, and then I will close this out. And Georgia, why don't you go ahead and start? Just final words.
I think that if you want to be happy, you can be happy. It's you will be happy. If you will do, be happy. If you want to be hungry, you do it. And I just want to tell you that everywhere, everyone, everywhere, everyone will think only about happiness. I think that this word is everything for us. Be happy and be healthy. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
To sum up this issue or this case, the immigration, I would like to say that, as what I said during this conversation, actually the people who immigrate from a place to another who are not the same people who want to damage the other countries or they have a bad intentions or so on. They go through oceans and the boats, boats through oceans, and see they don't want to damage the other countries or do something bad, but because they felt how it feels when your country is damaged and in war and so on. So look at this case from the positive side, because you give them a good thing when you do that. It's the first step to make something good for these immigrants people. And thank you.
Also, the final thing I would actually like to add to this conversation that is actually wonderful. There is a very nice and beautiful saying that could be related to this issue. And this is for like anyone who can be considered as refugees. It says, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Thank you.
Exactly.
I would like just to say one thing, and hopefully most of you will remember it. I want you to remember to embrace difference. Embrace difference, whether it's religion, race, immigrants, or anything. That will help you, and it will take you miles in your life. Thank you.
Then everybody is going through a story of themselves. Nobody is like really comfortable with their lives. Everybody is suffering in his own way. So instead of putting each other down, we have to lift each other up. And we have to be determined to do that. And thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna say it in Spanish and she's gonna translate it. Okay. Creo que lo que me gustaría que las personas supieran es que los inmigrantes no hacen nada malo y si ellos, la razón por la cual ellos inmigran principalmente siempre es para encontrar un mejor futuro y siento que las personas no deberían prohibirle a la gente no salir adelante, todos deberían de tener las mismas oportunidades. Y no creo que, siento que las personas no deberían de tener una etiqueta, las personas no deberían de ser ilegales o inmigrantes o por raza, siento que todos deberían de ser tratados por igual y la gente debería entender eso.
Okay, so what Pamela is saying that immigrants should not be considered as being harmful because we all move or change our location to seek better opportunities and form a better future. And she would also like to say that the world in general shouldn't be based on a status, that we all are the same and we should embrace that again and just, think that everybody needs to have the same opportunities despite the situation you're in. And thank you. And that's all. Thank you for this opportunity, and nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet all of you. Nice to virtually meet you in our audience. I've heard that the chat room is active, and we've got a few of those questions in onto the live feed, so I'm very excited. I just want to thank you all for your time, for your patience with our technical difficulties wherever you are watching. Hope it's not too early or too late and that you were able to get a bulk of our wonderful, riveting conversation. I want to remind you that this conversation is a collaboration of Students Rebuild, Global Nomads Group, and the CARE organization. And we are all concerned with making peace and highlighting the voices of young people and creating fair opportunity for all. And so as we wrap up this webcast, we're also wrapping up the final week of the Facing Difference Challenge. Next week, our challenge ends. And so if you're making portraits, if you're forming teams, go ahead, finish strong and get those portraits in so that we can help benefit some of these spaces that are facing dire conflict with young people right now, okay? And I just wanna shout out and point out that we've got portrait t-shirts and portraits on the wall in Georgia. And so just thank you all. These are 3 different teams that have submitted their faces to the stories of young people around the world who are interested in facing difference and making change. And so thank you all so much. One more week until the challenge. Finish strong. I can't wait to see all of your artwork. And Global Nomads Group, Students Rebuild, and Care Organization, we all thank you so much. We hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. Adios.
Goodbye. Bye. Salam in Arabic. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye-bye. Until soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Lots of love.